Okay. So, welcome to Thursday morning. Thank you for being here. Let's chat about what do you currently have on your schedule? How are you currently managing your time? What is something that can be, let's say, like more productive? Because last time we talked about, well, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, we talked about how you should be breaking down your time. And the breakdown of your time was, I'll review it. I'll review it quickly, but the breakdown of your time and how we talked about it was, um, 60 to 75% being marketing. And this is only if growth is your goal. So if you're under $500,000 a year and growth is your goal, 24. So if we're breaking this down over a 40-hour work week, um, 60 to 70% would be 24 to 30 hours a week, should be breaking down, should be marketing and lead gen. So you should be focused on getting more business 60 to 75% of the time. Your client work should be 15 to 25%, so 6 to 10 hours. I'm going to break down in more detail what all of this looks like. Um, so admin operations stuff, especially if you're still under that kind of $500,000 mark, 5 to 10%, which is 2 to 4 hours a week. And then business development, which is like, increasing skills, all of that, 5 to 10, which is again another 2 to 4 hours, which is how like what we do in the listings lab, right? In the listings lab, that's how we break it down, is that like you're working on the listings lab 2 to 4 hours a week while also working on everything else in your business. So with that being said, if we're going to break that down into something that's a little bit more detailed, because a lot of people were like very overwhelmed by the idea of like, what am I supposed to be doing in these categories? So the first thing that I think is incredibly important is that we focus first on what is it that you are currently doing. So some of you have seen versions of this, or versions of something like this. What I'm going to do is I have done a draft of this for you guys that has some of my stuff on it. It's old. It doesn't really matter if it has my stuff on it or not. I just wanted to give you examples. But I want you to think about what are the things that are currently on your plate. So when we think about that, I'm gonna give this to all of you. You do have to make a copy though, so I think I'm gonna email it out afterwards, only because if I give this to you, I know some of you are just gonna start typing in it. And you're not gonna make a copy, and then it's gonna be a mess. So I'm gonna send it out after. But like basically like what I want you to have here is like, creating. This is not typing for me. There's just so much going on my screen right now. So let's say like creating social media content. Um, and you don't get to say for the marketing and stuff like that you're not good at it and you're moving it off your plate, because that's essentially the most important part of your business right now. So basically what this is going to do is just give you a whole idea of like what you're currently working on. And then what bucket does it fall under? And this should have every single meeting that you have as well, that you have on your plate right now. So it could be creating social media content. It could be like reviewing new listings on MLS. This could be showings. This could be laundry. This could be making kids. Sorry, guys, there's a lot of people still joining. Making kids lunches. This could be anything. And then you can go over here and you can say, how good am I at this? Am I keeping it? Can it be automated? Am I outsourcing it? Am I delegating it to someone else on my team or someone else that I have in my life? Am I cutting it or removing it completely? And then this is like essentially the actions that you would take to essentially like, what are your next steps? I think this is a very simplified version of this, but I think it'll get you started. Does that make sense? Just to like give you an idea of like what is currently going on in your life and what you currently have on your plate. Now, I like to time and energy audit we make everyone on the team do it every 3 months. So we do it once a quarter, just because there's always what we call scope creep. right? There's things that we take on that we probably shouldn't have on our lists. I know that that happens for me, where like sometimes I'll get caught up in the it's faster for me just to do it. And then I look at it and I'm like, this shouldn't be on my plate. I'm going to delegate this and like this is who I'm delegating it to. So it just gives you some clarity in terms of like what are you currently doing and how are you currently spending your time. Um, every time you task switch, Deirdre. So every single time you start something new, it's super eye-opening. I agree, Colleen, and it gives you a lot more clarity in terms of where the time is going and how much wasted time you actually have. So we're going to start there. And then from there, we get to start to think about what we should be doing with our time based on our goals. And this is really where the distinction starts to, or like the fork in the road starts to happen. Because what happens with a lot of people is they have goals and then their actions don't align with getting them closer to those goals, if that makes sense. Like they say that they want to grow their business. They want their business to be bigger. They want to add an extra however many $100,000 per year to their bottom line. But then I look at their task audits and they're spending 2% of their time on marketing. And then I'll say, okay, well, if you want to grow, you should be in that 60 to 75% of your time being allocated to client generation. What are you doing for the rest of your time? And what you're actually doing or your actions don't align with what you say your goals are or what your intentions are. So because of that, you don't grow. And so I think for a lot of people who are looking for that clarity, I think it's important for us to understand that we are 100% in charge of our own time. And I know that there are going to be people who aren't going to fight me on that and who are going to say, I have kids, I have this, I have that. Yes. And everything that you do every single day is a choice. And even if you have 4 hours a day to work, you still have choice over how you're spending those 4 hours. And so a lot of the time, what ends up happening is people are so focused on being reactive and doing the wrong things, they will kind of get caught up in the wrong stuff. And then their results at the end of the year or the end of the quarter or whatever time period we're tracking don't line up. And then they get frustrated. Now, the frustration, if you are currently frustrated with where your business is right now, I would ask yourself, like, what haven't you been doing? What have you been avoiding? And I think a lot of it just honestly comes from avoidance, and people avoid the things that are hard. We'll talk about allocation of money for sure. I'll bring that into things. It's not even like spending a lot of time necessarily on the lead gen, but it's also about getting your skill set to a point where you are proficient at the things that are going to generate you business. Right? Like you can spend all the time in the world creating content, doing all these things. If you're not good at it and you don't have strategy behind it, then you're essentially wasting that time. And I see people who have been in the listings lab forever and who I've given direct feedback to about things that they're doing, and they continue to do it. And I've said, like, hey, this doesn't look good, or this isn't positioning you properly. And then they'll say, okay, 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 okay. And then they keep doing it. And so I think also there's a lot of stuff that gets kind of tied into this, including coachability and including like understanding that like a little bit of this is also going to be consuming content from good creators. And you guys have heard me say that before. Being able to say, my content doesn't look like that. Being able to say what I'm outputting needs to get better. And then there's the other side of the coin too, where we do still have people who are over editing and under strategizing. where their stuff is fancy and full of edits and like they're spending all of their time on things to capture attention and the messaging is still not good, right? So when we think about this though, it's instead of in the short term, instead of just rushing through the marketing piece, are you actually like putting something in place that is going to be successful for you? And I think for most of you, whether you want to admit it or not, you can look at your marketing and you can look at your social media and you can say, hey, I think this is really good, or I know that I still have work to do. Um, so I don't know how to say your name. It's very, very cool. It's Xan. Is it Zan? I hope I said that right. So she just said, cool. She just said, I feel like I get lost in admin. Um, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people get lost in admin, but I would ask you, what's the priority? Is the CRM setup the priority right now? Is the website setup a priority right now? I mean, website traffic is down massively, massively down. I would almost say I would rather you didn't have a website and you actually focused on your marketing. It's better for you just to have like a super, super basic website. If you're one of those people who spent a whole bunch of money on your website, I'm sorry. Because of the AI summaries, the website traffic is down hugely. And so I think that, yeah, it's easy to get lost in the admin stuff because it's also kind of a safe place to play, right? So I think a lot of people get caught up in the stuff that doesn't necessarily make them come up against the stuff that makes us uncomfortable, which is usually the like the camera work, the like talking, the stuff that feels hard. All right, let me get into some meat and potatoes here. So let's say lead gen and marketing, 24 to 30 hours a week. The purpose of this is attracting new clients, building visibility, staying top of mind, right? And again, none of this is going to work if you don't have a niche. So you can come to 800 of these trainings. If you are not being niche specific and you don't understand your marketing messaging, none of this is going to matter. And I say that with all the love in the world because I have people who come to these trainings and they try to execute, but they haven't niched down or they haven't niched down properly. And it doesn't matter how much time and energy you put into this. If you don't have a marketing message that's going to resonate and that's going to work, none of this matters. Okay, so your tasks. If we're actually breaking down what do tasks look like, I'm going to break this down with the understanding that some of you don't need to do all of this yet. This is a full exhaustive list, and some of this is going to apply to some of you. Some of it and all of it is going to apply to some of you, depending on how savvy you already are with your marketing, how savvy you already are, how much you already have set up, and at what level you actually are from an audience growth standpoint. So just kind of take this with a grain of salt. Creating reels, carousels, story content, writing emails, writing nurture campaigns, iterating nurture campaigns, iterating, writing one-off emails, managing and optimizing or setting up ads, client attraction funnels, creating lead magnets. When I say lead magnets, things like your guide, things like checklists, things like anything from a value standpoint that you are going to give your audience. If you follow me on Instagram or you're in the Facebook group, you know how much free stuff I give away. It's on purpose. You're creating an element of reciprocity and you're creating value. And so those things do still matter. Hosting webinars or live Q&As. Nurturing leads in your CRM. A lot of that can be automated, but if it's not set up, setting those things up. Updating different places with like, and focusing on doing essentially market research on things that are SEO friendly. What I mean by that is now Instagram, as an example, is actually pulling, and this is only about 2 weeks old, is now pulling SEO and keywords from your captions. So, do you know what those keywords are? Do you know what words and what triggers you should be putting into your long form captions? Collaborations with other businesses. And if you've been to any of our events, you have done a full training on this. Collaboration with other businesses, influencers, or anything like that from like an audience growth standpoint. And lastly, analyzing content performance and metrics. So that is what would fall under the banner of marketing and lead gen. So, Tom, what do you mean by no? Tom just wrote no, and I don't know what that means. um, so, so yeah, if you were late, I'm going to ask you to just kind of like ask for the replay after, because I think that I just want to keep this moving. Okay, so those are the things that we want from a marketing and lead gen standpoint. Now, client work. Client work should be 15 to 25%, which equals 6 to 10 hours a week. For most of you, your client work is incredibly inefficient. And you're thinking, I can't do that. Well, if you only have 2 to 3 clients on your roster right now, what are you doing with them that you're spending more than this amount of time? Like, in reality, I think because we're so reactive and we're so inefficient with our time, a lot of the time this becomes a problem because we're being inefficient. So attending showings or doing showings, writing negotiating offers, client meetings, check-ins, staging consultations, inspections, appraisals, etc., coordination with transaction partners, lenders, attorneys, etc., preparing clients for upcoming steps in your process, reviewing and explaining paperwork. Whatever is in your what is it that you do for your clients, right? And I know that if you were a brand new agent, God, the things that I did to get business when I was a brand new agent. I painted someone's condo once. I was like 21, but I asked them to go away for the weekend and I fully staged that thing by myself. Painted the entire thing on my own, didn't sleep. But I'm assuming that most of you are not there. So 6 to 10 hours a week, active clients. Business development. I think you know what admin work is, updating your CRM, managing your calendar and appointments, paperwork, compliance documents, responding to non-urgent emails, transaction timeline, coordinating transaction timelines, invoicing, tracking expenses, etc., organizing files, past client records, all of that stuff, right? So that's 2 to 4 hours a week. And then business development, auditing or refining systems and automations, testing and implementing new tools or tech, reviewing business performance and key performance indicators, creating or updating standard operating procedures, hiring, onboarding, training new team members. That's pretty much it, right? So business development. Also, what would also fall in under this category is coaching programs, like skill development. So I think with a lot of this, we can kind of get clear on, so 100 emails a day. I would love to hear what those 100 emails are, because I get a couple hundred emails a day, but I probably spend 10 minutes in my email inbox, right? Like I don't spend a lot of time and I get a couple hundred emails a day. So are you efficient in your email inbox? And are you using templates? Right? Are you using templates? Are you if you're sending a similar email out every single day, are you retyping that email from scratch every time? Right. So Dana, I need a little bit more context if you don't mind. Like how many deals do you do a year? Because I would love to kind of like understand kind of what kind of level we're talking about, because my answer is going to change depending on like where you are in your business. Cool. So with all of this being said, if we look at this as like an overall strategy, right? I think everyone can agree. And if you are getting several hundred emails a day and you are at a certain level where you know you're doing a certain amount of business, you should probably have a VA handling the majority of your or an assistant handling the majority of your emails. I don't know very many really, really successful people who manage all of their own emails, because email is like kind of the lowest hanging fruit when it comes to kind of business growth and buying time back. Um, cool. So with that being said, we have kind of a breakdown of tasks. The next step from understanding this is sticking to it. And sticking to it comes with putting it in a calendar. So do you have your calendar blocked? And because I say this all the time, right? I can look at your calendar and I can tell you how successful you're going to be. Because your calendar is really going to be the thing that kind of holds you accountable to what it is that you do and what things are going to look like. And I'm realizing that the email time blocking and the calendar stuff can be really overwhelming for certain people. So we actually, I don't know when it's going to be ready. Google is having us run through a lot of hoops. We built something for it for you. But I can't give it to you yet. I thought I was going to be able to give it to you this week, but Google wants a ton of compliance stuff because it asks for access into your email. Not that I want to read your emails, I don't care, but Google cares. So I have a tool for you that will essentially like fix that issue for most people. The main thing that I want to get across here is, what are you spending your time on? And I think that the majority of people here cannot say that they're spending 60 to 75% of their allocated work time on business generation. And so there are different seasons of your business. It is okay to say, I am not in a growth season right now. But if you are intending to be in a growth season, your calendar and your time allocated has to show that. Otherwise, it's literally just words. And so with that, when people tell me I don't have time to do the listings lab, I'm like, that's fine. It's fine if you don't have time. But that means you don't get to be in a growth season right now. So if you are in a growth season, like we're in a growth season at the moment, and I am spending 80% of my allocated time on marketing. Yes. Am I lucky because I have a big team? Yes. But when I first started the listings lab, which I obviously was in a growth season because it was the very beginning of the business, I spent 100% of the time on marketing and 0% of the time on client delivery. I built the program, I hired someone to deliver the program, and I spent 100% of the time on sales and marketing. And so a lot of this comes down to, do you fundamentally understand how you're allocating time and resources? So Luann asked about resources, right? It depends on what kind of a season you're in. But if you're in a growth season, for most people, a good 25 to 40% should be allocated to growth. If my business expenses are $100,000 a month, I'm just using round numbers. I'm not saying that you have to be spending $100,000 a month. I'm just using round numbers. Then $40,000 to $60,000 of that money should be going to growth. So when we think about that, resources are time, energy, money. And time, energy, money are essentially like, everyone always used to say, like, put your money where your mouth is. That still applies. Put your money where your mouth is, but also put your time where your mouth is, right? Like, what are the things that are actually the most important to you in your business right now? And if growth there are those things, then you have to be spending that amount of time. Um, Alexander, I totally agree. And I think you're in a really good position for that. So he's saying, for me, in an ideal world, I'd love to spend 85% on marketing and growth. Now, as a team leader, if you have a team and you are a team leader, you should be spending 85% of your time on marketing and growth, because that's your essentially that's what becomes your job. The first things that people should be offloading are client delivery and administration work. Those are the two things that come off your plate as soon as you have enough team. And then your focus becomes growth and leadership. So I think that a lot of people in real estate, because they read a very outdated old book, tend to do things in a very backwards way, where they keep everything on their plate and they only offload it when they also, I mean, it was written in a different time, right? And so a lot of this really comes down to, are you making the right decisions for the business to do what you want it to do? Because you are in control of the business. The business is not in control of you. You just need to be able to mold the business into what it is that you want it to be. And it's 100% based on the decisions that you make, where you spend the money, where you spend the time, what you build within the infrastructure of the business, right? The business is just a thing that you mold. What about paying for leads from national websites? I would say 0%. If you are running a successful business, you have to be in charge of the generation of your business. If you are buying leads from somewhere else, you do not own the business that you are building. Any good business generates their own business. That is the basics of a healthy business. Buying leads is such a weird thing in real estate. It's one of those things that I'm like, someone somewhere was really smart and realized that agents are lazy and that they can generate crappy leads and sell them to agents and make a ton of money. And so I mean, I've seen it a million times, right? It's a great business opportunity if you want to sell something to real estate agents, because they'll buy them. They'll buy them. I had a call with someone like 2 weeks ago who is spending, I think, like $8,000 buying leads and like barely breaking even, because they're not their leads. They're not built, they're not bought into them. They're not coming to them. It's just like cold lead generation. Um, Discipline. So John's asking me about discipline. I'm one of the least disciplined people I know, honestly. I tried to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning to like meditate and journal and work out and like do all those things, and I thought I was gonna die. Um, I very rarely wake up before 9 a.m. I love to sleep. Um, I work out when it fits into my, like, I have it scheduled. So I move, I journal, I do all of those things, but I don't follow like a 5 a.m. morning situation. I literally wanted to die. I hated my life. I did it for like a couple of weeks and I was like, this is not for me. It's actually that 5 a.m., like that miracle morning formula works wonders for men. And it's built for men. It's not built for women. Our hormones are not built that way. And so, from a discipline standpoint, it just goes into my calendar. And I am like the monkey that follows what's in my calendar. It goes in my calendar. I look at my calendar. I do what's on my calendar, right? Yeah, so I said this the other day. The enemy of a great life is a good life. right? I think a lot of people like they really like settle for good and they because they're not in pain. So when you're not in pain, you tend to not like go after great. I live in a place where like I'm on vacation every day. Like I literally live on vacation. I can walk outside at any time and go to one of the most beautiful beaches in the world. And I did that on purpose. Everything that is in there essentially was reverse engineered from what I eventually wanted. And it all just went into my calendar. So instead of getting up in the morning and having to make decisions about what I was going to do that day, it just goes into my calendar, right? I think it's very easy to have decision fatigue. What am I going to wear? That's a decision. You know, what am I going to do first? That's a decision, right? And the more decisions that we make throughout the day, if you don't know a lot about decision fatigue, I would highly suggest just Google it. It's a real thing because we only have a certain number of decisions that we can make every day. And the weight, and so I built what I call my ideal calendar. My entire team has access to my ideal calendar. And everything that I need to get done in a week gets put into that calendar and gets scheduled into that calendar. So because of that, we're essentially like my schedule is very like systematized. I have areas of time that I scroll on social media and look for specific things that I want to understand. It's in my calendar. I have a consuming block. I don't consume willy-nilly. I have it scheduled. Um, and I think that not having to like wake up in the morning and make a decision about what am I going to do today? What am I going to accomplish today? I think that there's something very freeing about that. Just being able to say, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to work on the things that are like in front of me. Um, and yes, like do things go awry? Absolutely. Do things get in the way? Of course. Do systems break? Yes. Do team members let you down? Yes. All of that happens. But I think a lot of this is very much geared around being able to understand what your goals are and reverse engineer them. Whenever anybody asks me, like, what do you guys do in your seven-figure programs? That's the answer. Our seven-figure programs are where do you want to be? And how do we reverse engineer that outcome in that time frame? Because it becomes very clear that these are the things that you need to focus on. These are the things that need to be built. These are the key performance indicators that need to be hit in order for you to get here. And if you want to be here in your life and in your business, then this is what your calendar needs to look like. This is what your time needs to look like. This is what your marketing needs to look like. It all gets very, very clear when you know what you want. But I think for a lot of people, when I say, what do you want? The answers that I get are vague. I want more leads. I want my business to grow. I want to feel less stressed. I want to put my kids through college. That's not an answer to my question. How many deals do you want to do? How much income do you want? How much profit do you want from that? And what do you want to be spending your time on? How much do you want to be working? Where do you want to be situated? How many team members do you want? If you don't have clarity on what you want everything to look like, I can't reverse engineer anything. So that initial clarity comes from clarity because so many people give me vague answers. And when you have vague answers to specific questions, you don't actually know where you're going. Which is the other reason why I think that sometimes we get caught up or distracted by the wrong things. Because we're not able to answer the question, does this get me closer to where I want to be faster? Because that's the only thing that matters. It doesn't matter how much it costs, and it doesn't matter how much, like, it does nothing else matters. Is this going to get me to where I want to be faster and easier? If the answer is yes, worth it all day. Yeah, I think that to a certain extent, Kimberly, too, like, especially women, like, the world is not built for us. And it's built in a way that like we are supposed to be like, all the like business books that are written by men. I mean, I've had a lot of male coaches in my life as well, and I've learned so much from them. And also I've learned that when it comes to the way that they set up their day and their lifestyle, it doesn't work for me. So there are things that I take and there are things that I ignore. Alex Hormozy's been in the news and online a lot in the last couple of days. Carolee spent all day yesterday with him. That's where we were going in Vegas, where I didn't get to. And so we did like a full business audit with them, and we looked at a whole bunch of aspects of of our business yesterday, and we talked to them about the AI stuff that we're building. Um, and what he does is he sleeps in, drinks a coffee, chews some nicotine gum, turns all the lights off, closes all the windows, like blinds down on all the windows, and sits for 8 hours. That works really well for certain people. I can't work like that. So finding what works for you and understanding the way that you work is really important too. I don't know a single woman who gets up at 5 a.m., who cold plunges and works out and makes breakfast and journals and meditates and blah 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 before 7 a.m. and is really successful. Because you're exhausted by the time like 7 a.m. rolls around. That works super, super well for men. It does not work for women. So, yeah, I mean, there's all these rules around how you're supposed to do things from all of these supposed experts. I answer my most important emails while I'm lying in bed. And everyone tells everybody that that's like the worst thing that you can do. I don't get up early in the morning, right? So, I mean, find what works for you. I have a really good friend, Amanda, who until she had her kids, she laid in bed until 10:30 every morning and did her first like an hour and a half of work from bed every day. And that worked really well for her. And she built an 8-figure business starting her day that way. So I think that there's a lot of rules that we don't necessarily need to follow in terms of like what our schedules need to look like. Your schedule just needs to work for you. Um, if you are a newer agent, I think that it is unbelievably important that you invest in the right things. Um, you don't need a fancy CRM, and you don't need a website, and you don't need branding and all of these things. You need to generate business. You need money in the door. And when you need money in the door, that's the only thing that you should be investing in or focusing on is marketing, building exposure, and getting business. So I think that that's incredibly important. Just to keep that in mind. All right. Well, I mean, I think I've rambled at you guys enough. If you guys have questions, you let me know. You can send me emails. Calgary's sold out. So if you wanted to come to that, sorry. But the virtual event's not in November. I still have some tickets. I've got here, let me grab that document for you guys. I think it'll be easy. Sharon, can you probably have it more handy than I do. Yeah, send me an email. Send me an email if you want anything. And yeah. Yes, Tom, come to the virtual. I would love to see you there. Just use the stock that Sharon just dropped. Use that link right here. Ooh, I can't wait to go to Turkey. I'll see some of you guys in Calgary. I'll see some of you at the virtual event, and I'll see some of you guys next week. Hope you have the best week ever and that you spend 60 to 75% of your time on marketing. Bye, guys.